Check their bags.
I'd call Simon O'Connor.
Well, that was all rather jejune, really, a little bit boring. Yeah, you have to look it up, actually. It's the quality of a good education, which most of my life has actually been under a national education. As a great fan of sesquipedalianism, I'm very happy to be here today. But what I want to use is, there's one word I'm not allowed to use today, so I want instead to use the word irony or duplicity. Because, you know, thank goodness there isn't an international ranking of opposition parties that makes sense, because this lot across here would be across a lot of trouble. Because consider the logic that we've heard today. Consider the rhetoric we've heard today and the logic, because the opposition is incredibly happy to compare us against international standards but not willing to allow national standards. Let's just sit with that again. They have been sitting with the PISA things today, Chris. They've been saying, oh, look at all these PISA standards, we're going to use them to try and clobber the government. Yet, of course, then they are against national standards. There seems to be a certain irony here. See, today, National is pleased to know how New Zealand is doing compared to the rest of the world. But Labour seems to be talking about a lot about that today too. Because, you know, where we differ, oh, terrible. Here's a man who's attempting to be scientific by knowing about the planets. He probably still thinks there's 9 planets in the solar system. Anyway, where we differ, you see, on this whole standards issue is that we believe in New Zealand parents should have the same access to the knowledge about how their children are doing as everyone else. But here we've heard again from Labour, from Greens, from New Zealand First, oh, we're very happy to accept international standards and understand where New Zealand stands there, but parents, oh, you shouldn't know about how your children are doing. That would be terrible. In fact, Chris Hipkins, we've got a lot of time for, was basically saying that in the next government, whenever that might happen, God forbid, they would scrap national standards. But you see, they don't seem entirely committed to that. You see, Labour would like a scheme, they tell us, to track student progress against the national curriculum. Chris says, we think, there's another, the Mr Hipkins one, we think parents deserve quality information about how their kids are doing. But see, I'm not sure exactly what that means when you look at what we've already got with national standards. You see, maybe Labour, Greens and others want some sort of holistic feel-good assessment in which juggling, basket weaving and tree hugging are ranked alongside sort of secondary concerns like reading, writing and arithmetic. It's very depressing. It is very depressing that the major aim of this Labour Party is to deny parents and the government straightforward information on how their children and their schools are doing. And that has been the irony of the debate throughout today, this huge desire to use the international standards of PISA to attack the national standards. Oh no, you don't want to do astrology, it's astronomy. It's a big... Oh, no, that's your group down here, actually. You want to go and look at some of the Hansard debates from the Greens in particular with their sort of Gaia worship and other things. Absolutely, indeed. I think my colleague, the Minister, points it out very well. And in fact, that's one of the other ironies today. We have all this talking of science from the opposition. It's all about democracy. Well, it's only democracy to the opposition if they get their way. Okay, absolutely. We saw that what happened with the Greens when one of their party members dared to challenge the leadership. Was he allowed a democratic mandate? Definitely not. Absolutely, democracy, absolutely perfect. And science, oh, we're all about science. We're all about science. Well, let's talk about the science of genetic engineering. Let's talk about the science of genetic modification. Let's talk about the science around drug use. But oh no, the Greens and Labour are not so much interested in that. It's very, very selective. Mr Speaker, we are a government committed to education, and I see that firsthand in my own electorate of Tamaki. Almost 89% of the young people in Tamaki have achieved NCEA Level 2. They are achieving over the target that this government has set. They are achieving not only because of what the government is driving, but because we have excellent teachers. And I think amongst all the debate today, there's an element of thanks which is required still to our teachers who do an enormous effort, going around and visiting the various principals and teachers of my schools, secondary and primary. They do an amazing job for our kids. And, you know, I think for most of them teachers in Auckland and New Zealand are not afraid to have some standards and have some tests, because if we want to help our children, we need to know how they are operating. Mr Speaker, thank you very much.
I call Mika Whaitiri.
Mr Speaker.